Hello everybody, my name is Mason, and welcome back to Mason Zero ASMR. Today I've got something fun to show you. This is a Magic the Gathering deck for my first Canadian Highlander deck. I have never tried this format before, so this should be interesting. Since I'm relatively budget and Highlander is basically just legacy, it was difficult to put together a deck where I didn't have to buy too many cards. So what I opted for was I'm gonna call it Blue Moon, but it's not Blue Moon in the traditional sense of like the modern deck. It revolves around the High Tide combo of making a ton of mana, just going off, and also Blood Moon effects. So it's a blue-red deck with a little bit of black, but it's like 90% blue. The red is mostly for Blood Moon and things like that. So a lot of hate cards because all of my playgroup is going to be playing with lots of fancy non-basic lands and other cards that I can't deal with. So I'm just going to launch into the deck. First of all, we have Pestermite, which is probably a good indication of one of my backup lands, which is the Splinter Twin combo. I should say I'm going to start with creatures here, and then move on through the types. I don't have very many creatures. So Pestermite is 2 and a blue for a 2/1 Fairy Rogue with Flash and Flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may tap or untap target permanent. I'm just going to go straight then to Deceiver Exarch, which is the other version. It's the same thing, 2 and a blue for a 1/4 Cleric with Flash. When Deceiver Exarch enters the battlefield, choose 1, untap target permanent you control, or tap target permanent an opponent controls. So both go infinite with Splinter Twin. Thing in the Ice. 1 and a blue for a 0/4 Horror Defender. Thing in the Ice enters the battlefield with 4 ice counters on it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, remove an ice counter from Thing in the Ice. Then, if it has no ice counters on it, transform it. And it transforms into a 7/8 Kraken Horror called Awoken Horror. When this creature transforms into Awoken Horror, return all non-horror creatures to their owner's hands. Next up, we have Baral, Chief of Compliance. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary creature, Human Wizard. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Now here's our first Blood Moon effect, Magus of the Moon. 2 and a red for a 2/2 Human Wizard. Non-basic lands are mountains. Another hate card, Harsh Mentor. 1 and a red for a 2/2 creature Human Cleric. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it isn't a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. Peregrine Drake, 4 and a blue for a 2/3 creature Drake with Flying. When Peregrine Drake enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. There's a lot of land untapping that happens in this deck, because you want to be able to tap your islands multiple times in the turn that you're going off, because High Tide makes islands add an additional blue. So this is just a free spell. Tempest Djinn, 3 blue for a 0/4 Djinn with Flying. Tempest Jin gets +1/+0 for each basic island you control. This is a brand new Dominaria card, and I kind of couldn't resist playing it in my mostly mono blue deck that has a lot of basic islands, so excited to see how that goes. It's just a win condition, really. Torrential Gearhulk, 4 and 2 blue for a 5/6 artifact creature construct with flash. When Torrential Gearhulk enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card will be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Nimble Obstructionist, 2 and a blue for a bird wizard, 3/1. Flash, flying, cycling for 2 and a blue. When you cycle Nimble Obstructionist, counter target activated or triggered ability you don't control. Just sort of another control effect that can be a flying creature if I need it to be. Now on to our enchantments. Our first one we have is Splinter Twin, 2 and 2 red for an aura enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has tap, put a token that's a copy of this creature onto the battlefield. That token has haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So, goes infinite with those first 2 creatures I showed you. You enchant them, tap to put a copy of it, it untaps the original, tap to make another token, and keep going infinitely. They have haste, so you attack with infinite creatures. Next we have Blood Moon, the one of the pieces that makes the whole deck work, or rather, makes other decks not work. So it's 2 and a red for an enchantment. Non-basic lands are mountains. I know at least one person in my playgroup has only non-basics in his deck. He has no basics at all. Next we have Stranglehold, 3 and a red for an enchantment. Your opponents can't search libraries. If an opponent would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. The best thing about this card is that it doesn't affect you. So you can still search, you can still take an extra turn. It's pretty nice. We have Energy Flux, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. All artifacts gain. During your upkeep, pay 2 or bury this artifact. Just kind of a fun artifact hate card that taxes them. If they want to keep them, they can't play as many other spells. Now onto our artifacts. We only have 2. One of them is, of course, Soul Ring, which I believe is the first card so far that's worth points. If you don't know about the Canadian Highlander format, there isn't really a banned list, but certain cards are worth points. You can only have 10 points per 100 cards. And Soul Ring is 3 points. Pretty much any tutors and fast mana cost points. This is a 7-point deck that I've made. Next we have Sentinel Totem, 1 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1. Tap to exile Sentinel Totem and exile all cards from all graveyards. Just a graveyard 8 card that only costs 1 as a scry. Now onto our instants, which make up the bulk of our deck. First is Cyclonic Rift, 1 and a white, or 1 and a blue, for an instant. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, or Overload for 6 and a blue, which returns each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, which is very nice. Supreme Will, 2 and a blue for instant. Choose 1. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3 mana. Or look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So for 1 extra mana you basically get your choice of Mana Leak or Impulse. Next up we have Peak, 1 blue for an instant. Look at target player's hand, draw a card. Just a simple 1 mana card to help get our storm count up, I suppose. And then it replaces itself, which is nice. Next is Quicken. 1 blue for an instant. The next sorcery card you cast this turn can be cast as though it had flash. Draw a card. Same deal as Peak, just replaces itself, and it's only 1 mana. The effect may or may not be relevant. Repulse. 2 and a blue for an instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Cards that replace themselves in your hand are great in this deck. Otherwise, this is just unsummon. Next is Snap. 1 and a blue. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Untap up to 2 lands. So there's that untapping lands thing again. We tap 2 islands, then we can untap them, get double mana. Oh, there are a couple black cards in here. One of them is Dark Ritual, which is 1 black. Add 3 black to your mana pool. The other one you'll see, but since black is a little limited in here, this is just sort of a failsafe. It also just adds more mana if we need to. We're just treat it as generic mana. Next is Opt. 1 blue for an instant. Scry 1, draw a card. More cheap cantrip spells. Dizzy spell is 1 blue, target creature gets -3/-0 until end of turn, but we don't care about that part. We care about Transmute for 1 and 2 blue, which is where you discard this card and search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost and put it into your hand. High Tide, which is what the deck is based around, is 1 mana, so Transmuting Dizzy spell allows you to search up High Tide. Or something else if we need it. Frantic Search. 2 and a blue for an instant. Draw 2 cards, then choose and discard 2 cards. Untap up to 3 lands. So another one of those essentially free spells where we untap lands. Draw cards, cycle through our deck. All those things we want. Next is Dig Through Time, which is another one of our points cards. It is 1 point. Dig Through Time costs 6 and 2 blue, and it has Delve, so we can exile cards from our graveyard to help pay for it. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Turnabout. 2 and 2 blue for an instant. Tap or untap all artifacts, creatures, or lands target player controls. What we want to do with this one probably is untap all of our lands. Might be useful for something else, but generally it's going to be to untap all of our lands to get more mana. Brainstorm. 1 blue for an instant. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. More card draw, more card filtering. For cheap. Counterspell. Classic counterspell. 2 blue. Counter target spell. Easy enough. Memory Lapse. 1 and a blue. Counter target spell. Put that spell on top of its owner's library. Counters anything, and it slows them down by a turn, basically. Pull from Tomorrow. X and 2 blue for an instant. Draw X cards, then discard a card. One of the things that sort of goes infinite in this deck is that you put a bunch of mana into X cost draw spells and draw a huge chunk of your library, and then you're able to keep casting more and more cards. Keep going off. Telling Time. 1 and a blue for an instant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 1 of those cards into your hand, 1 on top of your library, and 1 on the bottom of your library. More cheap card draw and filtering. That's what this deck is all about. Negate. 1 and a blue. Counter target non-creature spell. Counters are always nice. And likewise, we have Essence Scatter, 1 and a blue, to counter target creature spell. Both of which should hopefully be relevant. Then we have Blue Sun's Zenith, X and 3 blue. Target player draws X cards, shuffle Blue Sun's Zenith into its owner's library. So we can use this to draw our whole library. Or have some weird combo where we can make our opponent draw their whole library and then draw another card, then I guess that works too. But in general, we want to draw a bunch of cards and do a bunch of things. Hopefully be able to assemble some combos. Mana Leak, 1 and a blue. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. Rewind, 2 and 2 blue. Counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. So, more untapping of lands and more countering spells, all of which are things we greatly enjoy. Cards like that are even better if you can cost reduce them with cards like Brawl. Anticipate, 1 and a blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Reach through mists, 1 blue, draw a card. Mystical Teachings, 3 and a blue. Search your library for an instant card or a card with flash, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Flashback for 5 and a black. So this is one of those places where the black mana comes into effect. So that's why we have a bit of black. Into the Royal, 1 and a blue. With Kicker for 1 and a blue. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If Into the Royal is kicked, draw a card. Arcane Denial, 1 and a blue. Counter target spell. Its controller may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. You draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Here's one of our other points cards, and the main card that I had to purchase that I didn't already own, which is Mystical Tutor, which is worth 2 points in Canadian Highlander, as it is a tutor. 1 blue. Search your library for an instant interrupt mana source or sorcery card. So, an instant or sorcery. And reveal that card to all players. Shuffle your library and put the revealed card back on top of it. Then ideally we would draw it, and this is the card we're usually going to search for, which is High Tide. 1 blue. Until end of turn, all islands produce an additional blue when tapped for mana. So that enables us to do some crazy things. Repeal, X and a blue. Return target non-land permanent with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Unwind, 2 and a blue. Counter target non-creature spell. Untap up to 3 lands. So more of that untapping. Flood of Recollection, 2 blue. We're in sorceries now. So 2 blue, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Flood of Recollection. So this is to get back cards like High Tide, those key combo pieces. Deep Analysis, 3 and a blue. Target player draws 2 cards. Has flashback for 1 and a blue and 3 life. From the Ashes, one of our red cards again. This one is backbreaking to a lot of decks. 3 and a red. Destroy all non-basic lands. For each land destroyed this way, its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield. Then each player who searched his or her library this way shuffles it. On the decks that have no non-basic lands, or have no basic lands, this is a one-sided Armageddon, which is crazy. Plea for Power, 3 and a blue, with Will of the Council. Starting with you, each player votes for time or knowledge. If time gets more votes, take an extra turn after this one. If knowledge gets more votes or the vote is tied, draw 3 cards. We are perfectly fine drawing 3 cards. But the extra turn is nice, of course. Foresee, 3 and a blue. Scry 4, then draw 2 cards. Scrying 4 is crazy, that's some insane filtering, so we can definitely get what we're trying to get. By force, X and a red. Destroy X target artifacts. Yeah, just sort of a hedge against artifacts. Part the Water Veil. 4 and 2 blue. After this one, exile Birth the Water Veil. Awaken 6 for 6 and 3 blue. So, taking extra turns is nice, especially if we're going off. And then the Awaken, if we can pay for it, is a win condition in and of itself, eventually. Mind's Desire is sort of one of our combo cards. 4 and 2 blue, shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost, and it has Storm. So you copy it for each spell cast before it this turn, which could potentially be a lot. Here is our other black card, Dark Petition. 3 and 2 black, search your library for a card and put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. If there are 2 or more instant and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, you add 3 black to your mana pool. So this is a nice one because I can search up High Tide, put it directly into our hand, and we get some free mana in 99% of cases. Exhaustion. Here's another mean card. 2 and a blue. Creatures and lands target opponent controls do not untap during his or her next untap phase. This is essentially taking an extra turn for 3 mana. So, very good. Pour over the pages. 3 and 2 blue. Draw 3 cards, untap up to 2 lands, then discard a card. So more untapping lands, more drawing cards. All good. Strategic Planning. 1 and a blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. It's more card filtering, card draw, and helps delve. Compulsive Research. 2 and a blue. Target player draws 3 cards, then that player discards 2 cards unless he or she discards a land card. So, more card advantage. Day's Undoing. 2 and a blue for sorcery. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. If it's your turn, end the turn. This one's kind of a weird one, but can undo certain effects that are going to trigger at end of turn, and just things like that, so it's a little niche, but could be good. Ideas Unbound. 2 blue. Draw 3 cards, discard 3 cards at end of turn. If we're lucky, we either Days Undoing to prevent that effect from happening, or we just have an empty hand at that point. Temporal Trespass. 8 and 3 blue. With Delve, take an extra turn after this one, exile Temporal Trespass. Call to Mind. 2 and a blue. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Treasure Cruise is our next point card, also worth 1 point. So bringing us up to 7. 7 and 1 blue. With Delve, draw 3 cards. Serum Visions. 1 blue. Draw a card, scry 2. And that is all of our spells. Now we just have some lands. Only a few non-basics, just because of those Blood Moon effects. So we have Sulphur Falls. Taps for blue or red. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control an island or mountain. Smoldering Marsh. It is a swamp mountain. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Sunken Hollow is the same condition, but it's an island swamp. Dragon Skull Summit is the same as the blue-red land Sulphur Falls. Taps for black or red. Enters tapped unless you control a swamp or a mountain. We have Rocky Tar Pit, which enters the battlefield tapped. Then you can tap and sacrifice to search for a swamp or mountain and put it onto the battlefield. Helps us fetch those 2 lands and have land types. And then we have Field of Ruin. Taps for colorless, or we can pay 2, tap and sacrifice to destroy a non-basic land that opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield, and shuffles their library. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, basic islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basic mountains, and 2 basic swamps. So yeah, this deck is hopefully going to be fun for me. Probably won't be fun for anybody else, but hopefully it is for me. If you liked this deck, let me know. It's been a little while since I've done one. I will keep you posted on Twitter, link in the description for that, how this deck does. In a few weeks we're gonna play it with our playgroup, so that should be fun. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day or night. I hope this video entertained and relaxed you, and I will see you next week. Bye.